Welcome. Everyone's good? Nice and cold outside for California standards? All right, good.
Cool.
So, first of all, welcome. And those who are new or who are just coming second, third time, always good to have you. It's very nice. Parshas Bashalach is now continuing the theme of coming out of Egypt. We spoke last week at length about the concept of Pharaoh and Moses, parallels to the soul, the spiritual mechanics involved in coming out of Egypt. Parshas Bashalach is one of these parshiot that has so much content from the beginning to the end that entire books have been written about one of the ideas, let alone every idea in the parsha. We're going to focus on my favorite part of the parsha, because I think this is the part that is most relevant to the age in the sense of this generation in particular suffers from this particular malady tremendously. Number one, because of Galut, we are in exile. We've been unfortunately conditioned by foreign powers for millenniums, hence creating a certain frame of reference that's injurious to our spiritual growth. And number two, because the section's fascinating and it's the only section that describes God as waging a war that goes door to door, goes for every generation. The Battle of Amalek. Now, the Battle of Amalek, this enemy of the Jewish people, to understand the meaning of this battle and how significant the battle is within the framework of Jewish existence, consider the following. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Zohar says the following about this battle. Never before was there a battle like it, and there will never be a battle like it after. This battle is so unique in the nature of what it is, that with all of the wars, even Avraham Avinu, when Abraham fought the kings of the Sodom axis, the 4 and the 5 kings, that was a great battle. But according to the Rashbi, the Battle of Amalek is such an unusual battle that compared to that battle, no war before, in the days of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and no battle after. Even many battles in the desert and conquering the 31 kings of Eretz Canaan to convert Canaan to Israel for 7 years of battling. No battle compares to this. This is the battle. This is the one. So the weight of that statement begs, as our commentators say, it begs further interpretation. Who is Amalek? Why is the Battle of Amalek described as a generational battle until the end? Why is the Battle of Amalek relevant to us millenniums after the event? So, context. Let's begin first of all with who Amalek is. Where are the Jewish people in this moment in the story? Where are they? Well, they come out of Egypt. They're crossing the desert, as we'll learn much later, the 42 encampments from Ramses in Egypt all the way to the border of Israel. They're moving through the desert. They come to Rephidim. They come to a certain midbar, a certain part of wilderness. And something happens. They begin struggling. Now, are these people an easy people to deal with? No. Jewish nature is complex. It always has been. But they come to a place and they ask the following question. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. Is God with us or not? That was the question. Is God with us or not? The immediate verse that follows. V'yabo Amalek. And Amalek came. Immediately. Now, one thing about Torah is this, just to have a certain sense of how to think like a Torah. The Torah does not write in a linear sense, meaning it's not broken up into parts. The Torah flows together as one. What that means practically is, it's relevant to every time in human history, but more it means this. Whenever two verses end up together, the end of one verse and the beginning of the next, the Talmud tells us in Eruvin, and Perek Gimel Masechet Sukkah as well, that two verses connected to each other, the end and the beginning, are related. Likewise, any two words in a verse that are next to each other, juxtaposed, are related. So the section ends, is God with us or not? And immediately, Vayabo Amalek, Amalek came. Which means, according to interpretive law, according to the standard of the Talmud, it's related. The question they asked and the result of the attack are connected one to the other. So let's start with that. Very basic, little simple pshat. Why did he attack? So what is the question here? Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu imayin. What is that question?
Doubt creates evil.
Right. Okay, and it's a statement of doubt. It's a statement of uncertainty. We left Egypt. We came thus far. Is God still with us? Are we still with God or not? So the Rebbe of Kamarna explains the juxtaposition of Amalek attacking to the question of is God here or not is because doubt is such a powerful thing. It opens up the possibility, even when you are secure as these people. You left Egypt amidst miracles, plagues. You have a shepherd. You have a Moses. You have all of these things. You are moving through the Midbar, heading toward Har Sinai, heading toward the land of Israel. And yet the doubt and the question opens up this potential for an attack. So it says the Rebbe of Kamarna, the numerical value of Amalek, as taught in many places, equals the word safek, doubt. So we have it not only as a related gematria, we have it in the halakhic practicality of the verse. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin v'yabo Amalek. Amalek attacks, doubt. It's a doubt problem. So here's the $100 million question. It's a question that appears through all of Jewish history, and if somebody can answer the question before we get into the meaning of the question, I'd be impressed. And all the viewers will be impressed. What is the question? How could the people have gone through 10 plagues? 10 plagues. They've gone through emancipation after 210 years of oppressive exile. Moses came. He demonstrated mastery over Egypt. He conquered Egypt. He delivered the people. You are walking with what in front of you and behind you? You have a pillar of cloud here, a pillar of fire over there. You're looking at the miracles. You're watching them. How is it possible to come to a place and even begin to entertain the idea of if, an imponderable? For us, it makes sense. 2,000 years in the exile, we should be asking that question. It's justified. But how could it be? This is within the days of Passover. Seventh day of Passover is the splitting of the sea. Not even there at the splitting of the sea. They're looking at the miracles. They're watching them. How could somebody ask a question when it's happening in front of them? How is that possible? Did you ever wonder that? Go ahead.
Is your question about when Amalek hit, and was that after the crossing of the Red Sea?
It's actually before.
It's before.
It's before. Please, go ahead.
I think it's because until we crossed the Red Sea, we still had slave mentality.
Very good.
And then when we crossed the Red Sea, we actually got to see each of our slave owners
Okay.
die. And that was one of the reasons why the Jewish people actually...
Beautiful, beautiful. You quoted the Mechilta. The Mechilta says when they crossed the actual Yam Suf and it killed all of the 3 different armies that aligned against them, they witnessed the end of their galut. Very good, excellent. So now let me ask you another question. In the historical context, it makes sense. But what about today? If the Torah is relevant to the present, what does it mean to have today, in the midst of our exile, a slave mentality? What does that mean that we can actually, God forbid, say, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu imayin and v'yabo Amalek? How do we get there?
We still have it.
We still have it, right? Why do we have it? I mean, look at our world now. We have democracy. We have shuls everywhere, even in spite of anti-Semitism, let's be honest. Compared to other times in history, we have freedom. You can be who you want to be, do what you want to do, go to any shul you want to. If you're kind of in the Pico Robertson, you shul hop. You can be Sephardi one week, Ashkenaz the next. I mean, let's be honest. You have unlimited supply of books, shuls, talitot, tefillin, mezuzot, kosher food, everything. How could we today, with all of the availability, still have a slave mentality? How does that happen? Where does it come from? I understand in this context, yes. What about us? Why do we have that?
Egoism is predominant because we are attracted to material.
Ah, okay, we have an attraction innately to, okay, good, to chomer, to physicality.
What was the comment?
Okay, that we have an attraction to physical things, and it kind of corrupts our pure consciousness, which is exactly what it is. But let's now take it one more step. We understand what the people asked. We understand the result. Amalek attacked. But how did they get there? So, slave mentality, yes. But why did they have that? So the Chatam Sofer, one of the greatest luminaries of the 19th century, he says, there's another conundrum to this that will answer that question. When did the people ask that question? When they came to the desert called Rephadim. So every time we talk about a name in the Torah, it says in the Masechet Brachot in the Talmud, Lechu chazu mifalot Hashem, asher sam shamot ba'aretz. Go and see the works of God, who has placed devastations on the earth. The rabbis say, Al tikrei shamot ela shemot. Don't read devastations, read names. Every name has a divine significance. Every name the Torah gives, a human being, a place, a circumstance, is spiritually relevant. Understand the name. You understand why they asked the question, is God with us? So what does Rephadim refer to? That's where this happens. So what does that place mean? What is Rephadim? So the Chazal say, break the word into two, and it reads Rapa Yedayim, loosening of the hands. From what? That's actually, by the way, a description with mikvah. If you read the Taz in the Shulchan Aruch about how to put a kli into the mikvah, he says, loosen the hand. So when you put the kli into the water encompasses every part of the kli. Don't have a tight fist, okay? What does it mean here? They loosened their hand from Torah, and the result is the attack of Amalek. They didn't maintain studious commitment to the Torah, and so the Amalek attacked. But says the Chatam Sofer, but wait a second. You just said a second ago it's doubt. I thought they asked, is God with us or not? And Amalek came. Amalek gematria doubt. What's it mean now that they didn't study the Torah? Which one is it? Is it lack of Torah study? Or is it doubt? Which one is it? So you know what the Chatam Sofer explains? This is, why is it the same? So he explains the following. Not learning Torah creates what? What's it do? What's it do? When you learn, and you learn consistently, what changes inside of you? What happens?
You lose contact.
Okay, and how does your mindset change when you learn and when you don't learn? What happens? What's the difference?
Loosen up your standards.
Right.
Loosen
If
up
you
the
learn
standards.
Torah consistently, how do you look at the world? As what? A divine expression. You're looking at the world through Torah eyes. If you don't learn Torah, what are you bound by? Causality, randomness. You don't have interpretive skill to understand the events here, here, or here. Says the Chatam Sofer, before they came to Rephadim, they were so immersed in the study of Torah that even though things were happening around them, they had a particular frame of reference to understand why. They could put it within a certain divine mentality. They could interpret not based upon human reasoning, based upon Torah reasoning. The minute you withdraw from Torah, says the Chatam Sofer, quoting Rashi in Parshat Bashalach, here's what happens. The world becomes difficult to understand. Quoting Rashi, you are pushed from situation to situation, unable to see the thread of divine continuity between them, and it leads to apikoros. He becomes a heretic. He comes to say, is God with us or not? He doesn't understand in the world how God could be here. And so what brings the doubt, as you said, to the same thing? What brings the doubt to ask the question? Lack of Torah study. That's why the sages say, Talmud Torah keneged kula. The study of Torah is equivalent to everything. What you learn is how you think. Right? I mean, think of it logically. If you learn wise things, take even the philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, take Euclid. If you study philosophy, you study mathematics, how do you think if you're a mathematician? What's your language? Numbers. Okay? If you're an artist and your interpretations through paints and colors, how do you look at the world? Yeah. The Jewish mission is you have to understand reality in the language of Torah. If you can't think Torah, you can't see Torah. If you don't contemplate Torah, how do you see it in the riddle of our existence? The world is a riddle. The Baal Shem Tov once explained everything in reality is based upon the hide-and-go-seek game. God hides, we have to seek. If we're seeking, how do you find something that's hidden? How do you find it? How do you look? What do you do? Look for the clues. If I'm playing literal hide-and-go-seek with Saul, you would definitely outwit me in that game. How am I going to find you? I look for the clues. I look for the broken branch. I look for the blade of grass that may be compressed. I look for footprints. I'm not going to look just everywhere. I'm looking for the clues. But a 5-year-old child with no mind to look, how will he know where to go? Likewise, all of the sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, what do we now know? If you don't have instrumentation, if you don't have the instruments, you're not going to see microscopic things. If you want to see cells, can you see it with the naked eye? No. You have to look through a microscope and look at it. You want to see even smaller things, atomic structure, better buy a much bigger electron microscope and use that method. But what you see here is that without the instrument, you can't see it. It's invisible. So when people ask the question, where is God? How do I find God? The answer is, you have to use our instrument. What is the instrument that we need to find God? Torah. The Torah is the method. In fact, just to note parenthetically, there's a verse that says, abandon me, but keep my Torah. The Baal Shem Tov asked the question, shouldn't it say abandon Torah, but at least keep a relationship with God? What's it mean, abandon me, but keep my Torah? Says the Baal Shem Tov, there are 2 servants. The king sends his viceroy to both, and he tells the 2 servants, you have been granted access to the king's palace. You are free to enter and explore everything you want. Every tower, every structure, every part of it is yours to behold and to study. So one servant asked the question, which many would ask, okay, when do I meet the king? And the viceroy says, you're not going to meet the king. The one thing off limits to you for now is the throne room of the king. You cannot go in. So the servant says, and I very politely decline the invitation. If I can't meet the king, I don't want to do the effort. The second servant says, yeah, but wait a second. I may not see the king, but the whole layout of the palace will indicate the nature of the king. How he hangs his pictures, what books he chooses to read, how it's built, the shapes of the doors and the windows and the rooms and the turrets. It's indicative of the mind of the king. So, I may not meet the king, but I can infer much by studying the architecture of his palace. I can derive from that the nature of the king. So, says the Baal Shem Tov, God says, even if you abandon me, meaning even if you realize you can never comprehend me, with all the psukim that we have, God is greater than anything you can ever comprehend, fine, you can't comprehend it. You have a limited human rationale. But do not abandon Torah, because if you explore Torah, you get an inner preview into the way the whole king's palace is constructed. And that will give you a way to understand the king, even though we're still, until Mashiach will come, trapped in the riddle of the concealment of existence. You can derive much by understanding this. So, says the Chatam Sofer, if you go ahead and you practice learning Torah in the Torah proper way, you learn it, really learn it, how to apply it, how to use it. When you move through the desert, analogous to exile, it's hot, it's difficult, there's struggle, you will never come to ask the question, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu imayim, because you'll at least have the ability to see how things do come together, even if you're not perfect. If you can't see the king mamash in front of you. So, we now have the following. Okay, Amalek is a derivative of doubt, itself a derivative of a lack of Torah education, a lack of Torah study. This is also why when we talk about education, what is our word for education? What is it? It's chinuch, right? It's chinuch. What is the root of chinuch? What's its root? Yeah, chet, nun, kaf, sofit, right? The root is an acronym for our Torah. The chet is chumash, the 5 books. The nun is nevi'im, the prophets. The kaf is ketuvim, the writings. That's proper chinuch. So education is the key to everything. If we don't have a proper educational system, there is no way we can look at the world and say, through the veil of its concealment, I can see how that divine thread connects. The more mastered he or she is in the ways and thinking of Torah, the better your frame of reference, the better one can interpret God even in the desert. You'll never ask the question that can bring the Amalek. Yes, Mr. Saul.
I have a very basic, stupid question.
Please.
The thing is this, I say the nation of Israel, you know, in the Midbar.
Yes.
When you talk about Chinuch Torah,
Yes.
I think there are two ways of understanding Torah. One is the analytical Torah that needs Chokhmah.
Yes.
Needs a master like yourself.
You mean like you?
To analyze and to understand, and then to be in awe. The other way is Nasir Nishman. Follow the mitzvot, and you will understand eventually.
Yes.
Now, what these guys are, you know, in this heat, in the midbar, who was their master? Who was teaching them?
Moshe
Was
Rabbeinu.
this an analytical understanding?
Yes.
Or it was Nasir Nishman? How could you expect them to understand and be so confident that they would not ask, is God there?
Excellent question. So first of all, everyone understands the question. So were they hot and bothered in the desert? We're taught no. Don't forget, the miracle connected to Aharon HaKohen, to the brother of Moshe Rabbeinu, are the clouds of glory. And they said the clouds of glory surrounded the people from every side and carried them like a ship by day and like a boat by night. In other words, they never once touched the ground of the desert in a way that they were susceptible to heat. Snakes, scorpions, serpents, none of these cumbersome things were part of their reality. It was a miracle from the moment they left all the way until the Chet Egel, the golden calf. Even beyond, but really that was the turning point. So as of right now, there's no heat in the physical sense, but there is the heat of uncertainty. Now, as everyone said properly, the slave mentality does create something of a struggle. So here's where we are so far. Why does the Amalek come? The Amalek comes because of a doubt. Why does one have doubts? Because your frame of reference in Torah isn't properly developed. For lack of the study of Torah, ribha yadayim, that leads to the question that can bring the enemy in. That's where it starts. But now comes the bigger question. Why, as per your question, why is action not enough? If I go out and do a lot of tzedakah, as an example, I put on my tefillin, I do all kinds of physical mitzvot. Why do we still say, even though that is the key is the doing, the action, but why do we still say Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam? Why is Torah study still equivalent to everything and you have to do it? Why do we need that? So, do you ever have a moment, it's called capturing time. It's a moment of divine synchronicity when you enter a certain mind space and you can feel everything flows a certain way. It's par excellence. You are in a certain consciousness where your prayer flows, your actions flow, your understanding flows. You're in what's called in Kabbalah, mochin de gadlut, the expanded mind, the adult mind. And you're there. And in that moment, you'll say to yourself, if I can just hold on to this, I will never, ever again have to struggle with anything. You can feel it. And in that state, you just move down the street, holding on to that. You will never trip, you will never stumble, you'll be fine. But why can't we hold on to it? And by the way, this is for everybody. Even very famous Rabbi, the Kotzker Rebbe, the last decade of his life, locked himself in a room in a depression, even though it's a depression we really don't understand. It's a tzaddik, not a normal person. But still, everybody has the up and the down. Why can't we hold on to an enlightened state? Why do we go up and down continuously? Why are we stuck in that? So, if action mattered only, I can move all day, do my mitzvot, I'll be fine. I'll never ever come down and lack that perspective. It doesn't work. Even if you're very action-oriented, nobody can hold one state continuously. Why? What are we lacking? Do you know what the answer is? It's one verse. The Toldot comes and says, in the prophet Yecheskel, "V'hachayot ratso v'shov." The angels ran and returned. The sages say, don't read chayot, read chayut. Life force runs and returns. It runs into excellence, clarity, enlightenment, if you would, returns back down to a state of being entrapped, falling back into the void, back into the concealment, and it's back and forth continuously. We can never hold on to one state perpetually. No matter how brilliant, enlightened you are, you're not going to exist at one plane perpetually. In fact, that's the categorical difference between angels and humans. Angels are called standers. They stand in one place. The verse says, I'll make you movers amongst the standers. They're going to stand still. They're programmed to do one thing only. The human, up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down continuously. They can't stand still. They can't maintain. Why? And the answer is the very first part of the Parsha. If you go into Torah or of the Alter Rebbe, Torah Chaim of the Mittler Rebbe, this is discussed in great length. It begins by saying, Bashalach, the people fled out of Egypt. They ran. They got out fast. And now comes the giant question. Egypt is dead. 10 plagues. All the firstborn are dead. Before the plague, the firstborn of Egypt killed a bunch of Egyptians because they knew it was coming and Pharaoh would not let them go. All kinds of things just happened. 10 plagues, all kinds of miracles. Egypt is leveled. Why are you running out? Why run? Just stroll. I get running before that, before the Makot, but the Makot have come. Egypt is leveled. There's no more Egypt. Why are they running Bashalach out? Why so much? Why so much urgency? Walk, take a breath. 210 years of exile, take the breath. Why are you running? So the Hasidic masters explain using this idea of run and return. The nature of 99.9% of humanity is called Benoni. What is a Benoni by definition? Now understand something. When the Alter Rebbe engineered the book of Tanya, we all know what the Tanya is, right? It's pretty thick, right? It's 5 different sections. People don't know so much is he wrote a second Tanya called Sefer Tzadikim. He wrote a whole nother Tanya, a big thick Tanya, called the Book of Tzadikim, written only for the Tzadikim of the generation. The book was consumed in a fire, and he was told in a dream the world can't handle Sefer Tzadikim. The world is Benoni. That's why the Torah begins with what letter? The Bet. Benoni. That's the world. What is a Benoni? What is the definition of that? What's the nature spiritually of a Benoni? Which means, by definition, doesn't mean he's in the middle. What it actually means spiritually is he has 2 sides in the psyche acting all the time, never stopping, never relenting. There's a part of him that wants God. He thirsts for God. The Elishech Shukatech, he wants his beloved. Kalta Nafshi, he wants God. Another part of him is incredibly attracted, as you said before, to everything chomer, to all of physicality. He has passion, and that passion it's connected to the idea of this world. So in his psyche, he's split. The nature of a tzaddik is completely unified. Mind and heart, body and soul are one, where the whole idea of concealment does not exist for a tzaddik. Not like we have. All right, so we're split. That's why in certain moments you feel enlightenment. Because sometimes in the fracture of the psyche, the part that comes up is your divine part. When that part emerges out of you, you feel the clarity, you feel the certainty, it's emet, there's no doubt, there's no speculation, or it's certainty. But other times, it'll shift, and the animal comes out. And And now suddenly, the lack of refinement will create the veils and the concealments. So if that's the case, what happens if you know yourself so well that in the moment you realize, uh-oh, I've attained something great, and here it comes, by tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up, and sad as it may be, it's gone. So what do you do if you know yourself that well, you know when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen? What do you do in your mochin de gadlut state? What do you do then? Knowing it's coming. The return is coming. Mochin de gadlut is coming. What do you do?
Why not?
Enjoy it. And get ready to fight again. You can't say to yourself, you know what, I'm in this state, I'll stay in this state, and never again will the evil emerge or attempt to thwart me. You know it's coming, and it's coming back, and it's coming badly. It's coming after you. So what do? You run. You run. Now we know that certain kinds of environments are safe. As an example, if you stand in a shul or a yeshiva, maybe by your books or by important things, your family, what are you least likely to do around those sacred things? Well, you're not very likely to betray them, right? The danger of, God forbid, marital infidelity is not going to happen when you're next to your wife and your kids in your home. When's the danger? Where can it happen? In the marketplace. When you're away, you don't feel the connection. You don't feel the certainty. In those moments, that's when alien thoughts creep in. Standing before Mount Sinai, the people knew there's nothing but God. Atah Hashem levadcha. But where are they now? They're in Egypt. And what is Egypt described as in the Torah? The nakedness of the earth. A place devoid of all good things. A naked land. So what happens? The people, in their moment of respite, Egypt has fallen. For that 1 hour, they could feel the divine part is stronger. The Nefesh Elokit is predominant. So what did they do? Bashalach. They ran. They ran fast. Because they knew if we tarry too much in Egypt, by the next day, what's going to happen? The other side will come back. The Malay Dam will come back. Now this is also why the Zohar tells us the reason for their quick departure was because the people, for the first time in 210 years of exile, were now privy to what was in Egypt with them. They could now see the angels and all the celestial beings and hosts and souls detained there for their benefit. Their eyes opened and they could see everything that was there. And when they saw that, they could not remain 1 second longer in that land. They fled. But the meaning of it really is, when the divine soul is predominant and you feel certainty and great, we enjoy it. But we sometimes forget by the next morning, you're going to have to fight again. You need to fight again. This is why, without a Torah, we're doomed. Because even if somebody makes the argument, I'm action-oriented all day, I'm good with people, I do my tefillot, I do all these, good, it's wonderful, and it works. However, if you assume you're going to hold on to this state perpetually, you're mistaken. It's a delusion to believe that a Benoni will hold on to one state forever, and because of lack of knowing how to handle the other state, we have this inconsistency. Sometimes on, sometimes off. And again, we all do it. Unfortunately, compartmentalization is a Jewish specialty. We do it because we have the two natures. We're all trapped in this. So how does a person ensure that in moments where you do not have such a great feeling or arousal, how do you maintain fidelity to the mission? That's where the study of Torah comes in. When you learn Torah, you're reminded, wait a second, my ancestors went through 42 different camps in a 40-year journey in the desert, the lowest plane of consciousness, and they survived. They went into the land of Canaan. They took all of its inhabitants, 7 nations, 31 kings, 7 years of battle, and they won. 7 years of dividing and apportioning the land, and they thrived. We have witnessed through the beginning of time all the way to the present the statistical improbability of Jewish existence surviving everything. And what Torah teaches us is, if you think you're in the desert, and you think you're in Mochin de Katnut, you're very small and limited, you don't feel God so close, well, guess what? If you learn Bereshit, guess what you learn? Even Adam sinned. And Hashem had to say to him, Ayeka, where are you? Everyone has gone through moments of uncertainty. Without the Torah to restructure how we look at the world, we're doomed to fall into the question, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu imayim. That's why this is such an important thing. So when I meet people, which is quite often, people always have an orientation either toward the learning of Torah or the doing of Torah. I'll ask them, how do you study Torah each day? What's your Torah study habit? And people unfortunately believe if you're not a yeshiva scholar sitting for 12, 13, 14 hours in the daytime in yeshiva, you're not really learning Torah. Nonsense. Our sages explain, Keva 18 la Torah. It doesn't matter if it's a chapter in the morning and a chapter in the evening and a little bit in the middle of the day. You create for your schedule how to learn Torah, how to learn it. Now, today, even take a look at the Chumash we have here. This structure, in English, quotes Sforno, it quotes Ibn Ezra, it quotes Kli Yakar. You're getting a sampling per page of a lot of the classical, even without Hebrew, all the classical commentators are right here. Nobody today can ever say, I don't have a Torah to learn, I don't have a way to learn it. All it is lack of motivation and focus. So when we go ahead and we put three things together. Number one, understanding our human Benoni nature. We're going to rise and fall. We're going to expand and contract. We'll have moments of enlightenment and moments of terrible darkness. If we realize that, and we use the Torah to teach us how to survive the dark, how to maneuver through the desert, then when we come to Refadim, we come to those columnus places, difficult places, we're not going to ask the question, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu imayim. We're going to say, even if we don't see it, we don't sense it, because we now have an adaptive mind with a Torah education, we're going to be able to see it, even in moments of uncertainty. And we'll hold on and maintain our movement through the midbar. But we can't get lackadaisical and believe that the Amalek is simply a historical figure of the past. It's very much alive, it's generational, and generations have had the same problem. We've all had the same problem. Moments of lack of clarity leads to certain kinds of questions that lead to these types of struggles. You can eradicate them to a certain degree by maintaining fidelity to your Torah learning and ensuring that every day you put a little time aside to study. Any questions so far? Make sense? Good. Okay, let's continue. A little bit more. Let's take it one level deeper. A little bit deeper. Why does the Torah have such a cleansing effect on the mind? If you go into Pirkei Avot in chapter 5, it says, to attain the Torah, there are 48 different levels you have to have. 48 qualities. Now, 48 is the value of the word moach, mind. Torah has an incredible effect. It's a balm, it's a panacea for the mind. It takes a disorganized psyche and puts everything together in a way that you can better interpret the world. Why does Torah do that? Why does it have that power? Where does Torah come from that has that incredible effect? Okay, so we'll take it a little bit deeper now in terms of a concept that should become clear as we progress. One of the famous commentators to the Zohar is called the Tzvilat Tzaddik. Says the Tzvilat Tzaddik, he says, the question they asked, is God with us or not? Is yesh, not ayin. That's the words in Hebrew, yesh and ayin. He gives a remarkable hint that doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about it. He says, if we add together the name of the angel of impurity, the name of the force that taxes the mind, corrupts the mind, it's called Sam-El, Samech Mem Aleph Lamed. If we take that name in Kabbalah, and we add it to the word Amalek, the army who attacked, Sam-El plus Amalek equals Yesh and Ayin. It equals the question. Now, I read that, and I was, okay, beautiful, but there's a problem with that whole concept. So, Sam El and Amalek equal Yesh and Ayin. But I thought they asked Yesh and Ayin first, before the Amalek attacked. It should be the opposite. This is suggesting that you need the Amalek and its spiritual counterpart together to make one say Yesh and Ayin. Is God with us or not? But according to the narrative, they first asked the question, is God with us or not? And then the Amalek attacked. So how could it be backwards? What does that mean? So now we get into a very, very deep idea in Kabbalah that is such an important concept. It's the bedrock of how we understand the spiritual mechanics of the mind. Where does Torah come from? Well, the Zohar says, Oraita, Torah, nechachma yotzei. It comes out of wisdom. Hence, if you go to the beginning of the Torah, the first word is Bereshit. The Targum translation is B'chachmata, in wisdom. Wisdom. Okay, now what is wisdom? What is wisdom? How do we define it? According to Kabbalah and Chassidut. When someone says, I have a chachma, or I'm a Talmud chacham, what does that mean? What is wisdom? It's God-given. And when do you have a chachma, as opposed to a bina or a da'at? What is chachma? What is wisdom? Okay, we'll begin with the Zohar. The Zohar says, in the Tikkunim, it's a flash of lightning that emits out of a dark sky. It's a sudden bolt of lightning, a barak. Okay, now how does a lightning bolt look? If you're driving somewhere where there's a big lightning storm, and you have that flash, what is lightning? What does it look like to us? It flashes, and what happens?
Sustains. Stops.
Stops. There's an afterglow if it's bright enough. Then what happens maybe 10 seconds later? Gone. Like it never was. Like it never happened. Wisdom, according to Kabbalah, is the moment of discovery, where you say, I got something. I got it. I thought about it. Boom, I have something now. You run over to the board and begin writing everything out and developing the bina of it, which is the details included in the idea of wisdom. So all the wisdom is the initial flash of intuitive thought prior to its development in all of the details of bina. That's what chachma is. In the language of the Igra de Pirka, it's called machshava pshuta blihi pashtut. Simple thought, no dimension. And the evidence is, go to somebody who says to you, I got something, and say, what do you got? Explain it to me. They can't. Because it's still trapped in the inspiration stage, which is, wait, let me settle down, I have to run over here and process it. The sinking into the mind of a new idea, of an innovative idea, is the bina part of it. But all chachma is a potential. That's why it's taught in the Sefer Yetzirah, chachma gematria gelim. It's a formless matter. It's only potential. Now, how you think about it will determine exactly the shape of it. As an example, think tanks. You go to a think tank. You give one idea to 20 people. It's one common idea, and 20 different people contemplate what it is and how to use it. You may have 20 different ways to apply it. So why didn't they have only one way come out of it? Because it's one idea with 20 different minds contemplating what it means. It's going to come out different, each according to his nature. So according to the Zohar, wisdom comes from that. But Chassidus says, not quite. It's even higher. When you have, anybody here not have those moments of the flash of inspiration? We've all had it, correct? Good. The Alter Rebbe, in Tefillat Dach, his commentary to the Siddur, his son, the Mittler Rebbe, was the first publication after he assumed the mantle of leadership, was Tefillat Dach. Says the Alter Rebbe, once you have an actual discovery of something, and you have the moment of, oh, I got it, what do you now know? You know two things. One, you've discovered something. You have found something. Number two, you now know there's a hidden place in your consciousness where new discoveries come from. There's some hidden realm in you that when you do things right, you think right, you contemplate right, you meditate right, new insights come out of it. So the awareness of, I have something new, that's called chachma. But what is the third person awareness that there's something higher than that from which the wisdom shines out of? What is that called? That, according to Chassidus, is exactly where Torah comes from. It's called mocha stima'a, the hidden brain. In the language of Kabbalah, it's called the chachma of arich anpin, the wisdom of the elongated countenance. What that means simply is, it's a superconscious part of you, it's higher than mind, and from that, new insights shoot in like arrows. And how do you reach it? You have to very deeply contemplate something. You have to take a certain body of knowledge, immerse yourself in, it's called hitbonenut. You think deeply and deeper still, and when you reach the very deepest part, you tug that hidden part of your brain, and the new ideas come flashing out. It's called the hidden brain, hidden wisdom. Chassidus says that's the wisdom Torah comes from. It comes from that level. Now, what is that level ultimately? Because all of us have in us infinite potential, like we know. We're capable, under the right conditions, of having infinitely new insights all the time. How many souls have attained that? Very few. The Mittler Rebbe was one of them. He had a friend, one of his Talmidim, called Stender. You know what a Stender is? Where you put your book. Who was the Stender? So the Stender was a man that was designated that when the Mittler Rebbe used to have downloads of information, he would lean on this man. He would lean on him. Why? Because it would go on for hours and hours and hours and hours. Hours of expounding these very deepest ideas. He would lean on this person 6, 7, 8, 9 hours straight. And he would just sit there as the Stender. He would lean on him. So how's that possible? Because the Mittler Rebbe was having new insights every moment. Now, is that a usual thing? No. For most of us, you have to work until you merit one of these. And we have them every so often, if we go deep enough. So, the mocha stima'a, the hidden brain, represents all of the infinite insights you could potentially manufacture. To get there, you have to study. Now, have you noticed something that when you have a moment of inspiration, and you have a sudden burst of newness enter your consciousness, is your brain thinking about chomer? Is it thinking about material, lowly things? Common desire? Sex, drugs, money, power? No. Why not? Why not? In those rare moments of complete chidush, total insight, why do we have a total detachment from everything physical?
Because you have a different consciousness.
Very much. And that level is so high that when you touch the hidden part of you, that hidden part with all of your potential, with new ideas coming in, it whitewashes the brain, and there's no longer any limitation of you at all. You have officially stepped out of the way. You're not there anymore. The limitation of ego, for example, has now been thwarted for the moment you have it. The challenge, of course, going back to the original premise, you can't hold on to one level forever. So again, this is called the hidden brain. When you experience it, there's nothing else but the experience and the arousal and the pleasure of discovery. You will need nothing else. You will want nothing else. You will crave nothing else. It's an incredible thing to have. I had one night one time, I had just every hour. It just kept deepening and deepening and deepening. And that was it. Next night, no. But that one night I had it. And I remember when I had it, you couldn't eat, you couldn't drink, you didn't care. The physical body was as null and void. That's called, again, mocha stima'a, hidden brain. It's above the conscious, limited self, and when you tap it, new insights come in. Now, where do you think all evil begins from? The selfless part of you that's infinite, or the ego part of you that's limited? The ego, obviously. When you have a thick, strong ego, that's where we get into that very tricky area, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Now, the name of the angel name of the angel that we just said is responsible for all forms of tumah, all kinds of impurity, itself a limitation. Impurity of the mind, impurity of the psyche, is this name, Sam-El. That's the name of it. That's the description in Hebrew. Again, this is the part of your evil that corrupts in particular mental faculty. When your mind can't see things right, that's what it is. Sam-El. Now we just said, when you touch the mocha stima'ah, the higher brain, and new ideas come in, you're free from that. Your mind has no limitation. You feel excited and inspired. You care very little about physical things. But when you're not having those moments, you're just you and all of your limitations, that's where the evil can happen. When a Jew studies Torah, here's the advantage. You're not the Mittler Rebbe, neither am I. You're not Rabbi Akiva, who is called, by the way, in the Gemara and Megillah, Rabbi Akiva Hastim Ta'ah. He's referred to as that hidden brain. We're not him. We're not Moshe Rabbeinu. We're us, with all of our greatness and all of our weakness. So if we can't have ongoing inspiration, hour to hour, second to second, and we can't escape the clutches of these evil things, how do we do it? How do we stay safe? So the answer is Torah study. Because the Torah is coming from that level, again, quote in the Zohar, the Torah comes from Chachma Stima'ah, that hidden level. When you learn Torah, it's as if in the hour that you learn it, you're a Moses or a Rabbi Akiva or a Rava or an Abaya. It's as if you're them. Not that you are them, but you're tapping into that source. You reach the Mocha Stima'ah at that level. In fact, says Megillah, if you look at the Ten Commandments, there were two letters that were said to be hovering on the tablets. They didn't fall. The Mem and the Samach. It's a big discussion, but we'll keep it simple. Two letters miraculously clung to the tablets and did not fall when you engraved them all the way through. Mem and Samach. Why the Mem and Samach? It's an acronym. Mocha Stima'ah. The hidden wisdom above mind. Here's what happens. Go back. You come out of Egypt. Each and every day you're going to be transcending your Egypt. You're trying to outsmart the part of you which will indefinitely try to come back until Mashiach's time and thwart your spiritual progress. Your animal soul will always renew its power each morning. You run to get away from it. You Bashalach, you flee. But then, if you do not maintain diligence in Torah study with this gift, what happens then? You are trapped by your own limitations. And eventually, says Rashi, you will go from situation to situation until, God forbid, you ask the question, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu imay. And then, by Is Amalek, the Amalek attacks and tries to challenge everything sacred. So, when you learn Torah, even if you're not the one having ongoing insights, you tap into a level as if you are. Because everything is in the Torah, the future, the past, and the present. This is why it says Kehilat Yaakov, the name Sam-El. Sam-El. Samech Mem Aleph Lamed. If you read it backwards, it spells the following phrase, Lehamshich or Mocha Stima'ah. To draw forth the light of the hidden brain. In other words, study this, and you're safe from that. But if you do not study Torah, what happens? The impurity comes back every day. It corrupts the way that we're meant to understand the world. We begin to have doubts. Once you have a doubt here, it's only a matter of time before the events of the world around you will start to change according to those doubts. This is why we say, as just a general principle in Torah, it's a famous Talmudic statement, you do not see the world as it is, you see it as you are. So if you're clear, the world fits together, like a perfectly put together jigsaw puzzle. If you're unclear, and the mind is thwarted and contaminated, you're going to see a broken, asymmetric world. You will not see how it fits together. So now we understand why it says that Tfilat Tzaddik, when you add together Samael and Amalek, it equals Yesh Ayin. Because when a person does not learn Torah, again, refadim, he withdraws his hand from it. He's no longer privy to the mochas tima'ah. He's not given access to the level above level, the infinite potential of who we are. That allows the Sam El again to rise, corrupt the consciousness. Again, we have an animal soul that's very strong and returns every day, Benoni. It corrupts the mind. Then we have doubts. Again, Amalek equals doubt. Once we have an Amalek within us, and now inside we're having an Amalek, the doubts and the opposition, it's only a matter of time until V'yabo Amalek B'gashmiut. Then, bless you, the physical Amalek attacks. So this is why each and every one of us is responsible for three things. Number one, assume each and every day, because you're a Benoni, you're going to have to reface whatever negative qualities you have. By our design, we are Benoni. The Nefesh Bahamit will rear its head each day. Number two, you're given a gift. Abandon me, but keep my Torah. Remember, the Torah is coming from the level that will put you into the level of inspiration as if you are a Moshe Rabbeinu or a Rabbi Akiva. It taps into that for the hour that you learn it. By cleansing the mind through that kind of clarity, that kind of connection, you now have a sizable advantage to move through even difficult desert moments. Absences in your consciousness of divine continuity, you'll be able to master them, see through them, and rise above them. But the Amalek can only attack on level one if we withdraw our hand, Rapa Yadayim, from immersing in Torah, each to our potential, and forgetting that this is the key. The mitzvot are important. Yes, the most important part are the mitzvot. But the key to maintaining continuity to do them each and every day is making sure we have a certain perspective that rises above doubt, above impurity, and the only way to do that is to tap into that which takes you above the limitations of the mind. The mochas tima'ah of the Torah is what destroys and annihilates the opposition. So again, it's a process, and everything in Torah is a process. Be it gestation, or be it coming out of Egypt, or be it any other period of time. We're always moving through cycles. So one more time, 4 things. Assume every morning that the opposition will rise again, no matter how good you felt the previous day. If you're lucky to have a certain continuity of inspiration for a week, good for you. And it should continue, God willing, your whole life, except, according to human nature, Benoni, not likely. So assume the opposition will be there. Number 2, remember, even if you're the busiest person in the world, and you're not a yeshiva student sitting learning all day, doesn't matter. Make times in the beginning, make times in the end. Create a timetable that you can follow. Don't underestimate 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 20 minutes over there, an hour over there. It all matters. It all adds up. That will tap you into the hidden dimension, mochas tima'ah, above your own limitations. Number 3, by maintaining fidelity to the Torah, you have a better chance in moments of difficulty and katnut, when you can't see things clear, to rise above the concealment and to avoid asking the question that brings the physical Amalek to attack. So doubt is only ever a thing when the mind doesn't see what's there. And if you can't do it yourself, because you're not the Rebbe, no one is. This is the way. This is the gate. Except she can do it all the time. So this is the way that we operate. If we practice this, it's not a very lofty thing. This is not requiring 20 years of meditation. It just requires consistency of practice and having a schedule each and every day. That's the key. If you maintain that, you will always maintain your connection. All right, so the last 2-3 minutes, any questions about any part of this that may have been confusing, unclear, or uncertain?
You said there were 4 things.
4 things, basically. The physical Amalek is only ever a translation of the spiritual Amalek. So remember that any physical thing that happens outside of you is a direct projection of who you are. And that's often, unfortunately, the reality that we face. In fact, this is why, as the Rebbe brings, if you look at the Ravid and the Ramban, there's a discussion about the famous prophecy that in Mashiach's time, the wolf will lie down with the lamb. No longer will the wolf pursue and try to eat the lamb. The question is that literal or figurative? The Rambam says, literal. You will see a change of nature itself. Shinui b'teva. The Rabbi and the Ramban say, no, figurative. It's a spiritual lion or wolf and lamb. The wolf of the evil will no longer threaten the lamb of your better nature. Your insides will be stable, clear. Which one is it? The Ramban or the Rambam? The Rebbe explains one is the other. The condition of having a change of nature on the outside, the wolf and lamb lying down in peace, our real change of nature, depends upon a change of nature on the inside. Once the inner wolf and lamb lie down, the biocentric projection is going to be a change of nature itself. Just to make mention of one more thing that's relevant in terms of studies. There's a famous biochemist named Sheldrake from Oxford. He talks about experiments that establish how things change physically. He said one thing that has been proven is this. If you take a family of rats, it's one of the experiments done. Family of rats. And you take the rats and one by one you introduce them to a maze. They're a family, let's say there's 20, 30, 40 members. You put them into a maze. Number one goes in, and they're fidgeting with the different things in the maze. Let's say there's a piece of cheese, some kind of destination, and they can't figure it out. So they clock them. How long will it take until the puzzle is solved? The first rat takes a certain period of time. He's intelligent for a rat, and he has to figure things out. Eventually, they can figure out how to maneuver through the maze and get to the end. Then they clocked the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one. By the time it came to the end, they studied, they plotted the chart. The duration of time for the last one that's moving through is so much less that it's noticeable. It's not just one of these, scientific clocks that measures a fraction of it. No, this is actually a noticeable plot that the ones that come later learn quicker and faster than the ones that come before. So he explains that there is if you would, a collective consciousness where if enough people do the right thing, the generations who come later will benefit. This is a very deep Torah idea. Even if you are, in your own mind, so little, limited, and weak, God forbid, you have to understand something. Everything that we do as one family, Am Yisrael, as you said, the Jewish people, every person who does influences every other person who's doing it. So even if we take some longer time, believe me, as the generations unfold, it'll get quicker, it'll get faster, and eventually you have Mashiach.
It's true.
It's a process. It's a very true phenomenon.
It's something with our family. Children feel disconnected with the parents when they're studying Torah. They feel disconnected. We see that eventually they come. And
Yes, very much, very much. It's a powerful concept. We often underestimate it. Okay, any other questions? Everybody, thank you for coming. We'll see you, God willing, next week.